We have reams and reams of scientific answers to things in libraries, around the world, but frequently they're not used.
Yeah, you want to be specialized to a certain degree, but you have to put that into the larger context of the world that we live in.
In our little academic silos, we solve one problem at a time, and so the world doesn't find these solutions very useful.
Sustainability science is really new. It's cutting edge. It's a paradigm shift.
Sustainability science, if we were to, kind of narrow it down into what it involves, I think a transdisciplinary problem-solving approach is a part of it. Mitigation, adaptation, and resilience are another part of it.
It's what the scientific community is embracing, this idea of transdisciplinary problem solving, human ecological systems.
Such a paradigm shift is widely recognized as having been necessary. It's for the last 2 decades or more.
I think it's a very positive way of looking at the future.
Leading practitioners and thought leaders have said, we've got to do this differently.
We know that we're here and this is the planet we live on, and we have to make it work for all of us.
The world doesn't present us with problems. And we academicians, we love to give our students problems, little problem sets. But that's not what we find out in the real world. What we find out in the real world are messes.
Somehow, some way, we've got to address these environmental problems in a different way. Only now are we starting to embrace that.
Our students are ready for it. Our structure doesn't limit us or inhibit us.
It offers us a very 21st century way of looking at education, especially in terms of being adaptive and being resilient.
We take those different approaches to the mess our human systems are in right now, and we can get a great deal out of that.
And hanging it on a framework of something like sustainability science just makes sense for a college like this.
Relationship to the environment and our responsibility to the environment is always what Unity has been about.
I think everybody that's come to Unity College since it's opened its doors has been, a proponent of sustainability science, only they didn't know it.
And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
A little drama is always good for the morning.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Happy Friday, April 20th, 2012. You are tuned in to WERU 89.9 FM Blue Hill, 99.9 FM in Bangor, and streaming at weru.org. This is Midcoast Currents, WERU's public affairs program focusing on the latest doings and doers in Knox and Waldo counties.
Maine is known for its large stands of mixed and evergreen forests, including a landowner favorite, the hemlock. The hemlock woolly adelgid infests and destroys hemlock trees, but landowners, state officials, and scientists in Maine are working together to imagine solutions to the problem of the hemlock woolly adelgid.
And our guests today are some of those people that are working towards solutions. In the studio, we have Dr. Amy Arnett. Dr. Arnett is a professor of biology, ecology. I'm guessing here. She's nodding her head now. Ecology at Unity College. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Also in the studio is Kathleen Dunkel. Kathleen is a faculty member in the Center for Natural Resource Management and Protection at Unity College. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you. How can we help landowners in Maine do best management practices in face of the fact that hemlock woolly adelgid is well established in southern Maine, like Allison just said, and potentially going to be moving up the coast and impacting a lot of hemlock in the state. So how do we plan for this, and how do we understand the changes that will be coming in the forests with potential loss of hemlock? Ecologists tend to look at a problem or a question, a hypothesis about, I predict this is what the changes in the plants will be. I predict this is the changes in the ants will be. It tends to be fairly focused and narrow in its question, obviously because then it's testable, right? You can say, this is what caused the change. I don't have a million variables. I can narrow it down, right? So it's by design that's how science is done.
the old model was we're going to get together and ask questions that are really interesting to us as scientists. And then we're going to answer them and publish it in a journal. And the scientists that are interested in it will read it.
The problem with that is that it tends to be too reductionist. You don't move forward, and it doesn't incorporate a lot of the other things that might be more timely and important socially for people.
And so now this knowledge to action idea is that before you design the study, you talk to stakeholders and you find out what are they interested in, what information do they need to make more informed, better decisions. And you incorporate that into your study design, even if it's something that you weren't necessarily interested in personally. You incorporate it in.
That's different than how I've traditionally done science, so this is a new thing for me.
And it becomes much less selfish, I guess, more of a selfless pursuit, and it feels good. It's nice.
Problem-based approaches is exactly what adventure and experiential education and educators work with. We don't want to piece out topics or aspects or resources and just look at one thing. We want to educate people about a situation.
And so it's more applied when we look at it from a problem-based typically. So how are humans responding to it? And that's often not of interest to ecologists.
Ignoring the humans has been our Achilles heel all along in terms of our conservation and natural resource paradigms.
Most ecologists start to shift and realize the more applied aspects might help integrate the values we're learning from ecology about biodiversity and ecosystem function and things like that. If we can get people to understand that value, it will have broader impact in the long run.
What we know of hemlock is that it may not be of high quality to lumber industries, so it's not purely timber value that we'd be looking at. And so we also have to consider some of those other economic impacts that would occur just based on aesthetic value and some of those non-consumptive resources that we know hemlock is used for. And that's recreation, hunting, because we know hemlock is important deer wintering habitat, the ecosystem services that hemlock perform.
Frequently what happens in finding a solution to an environmental problem is the human component is just simply ignored.
You know, where did people come from? What is their background? And how did they live growing up?
I would even suggest some of the cultural issues as far as wars and even political fights are an aspect, a cultural expression of the strain on the resources.
Conservation officers are looked at as the face of science in general when it comes to natural resources because they are the interface with the public. And the scientists are often operating in the background, but the officers are out facing the public, having to explain all the systems problems, whether it's a population of deer that may be declining or bear or whatever it might be. But the public expects those officers to have all the answers and to understand the fundamentals of resource management and sustainability science. So they, in some senses, have to be the most well-versed people out there.
Those three components of people, economy, and environment are exactly what we are teaching and cover here at Unity College.
Now, I just think, having grown up in rural Maine, I grew up in a sustainability science laboratory, basically.
So our challenge here with sustainability science is to find a way to have social systems and natural systems work together in a sustained long-term fashion.
So this is not what we would think of as kind of pure science that's completely kind of curiosity-driven. This is a problem-solving sort of approach.
Right. The intention is to be applied and to apply the research to help people, solve a problem or to have a way of handling a potential problem.
Well, I see mitigation, adaptation, and resilience as the coin of the realm for sustainability science, if you will. It really is what sustainability is all about.
Adaptation,
mitigation. and resilience.
Resilience. I think with resilience, a powerful tool to have is to be able to predict what's going to happen. Maybe looking at climate change patterns, we can say, we know X, Y, and therefore we can expect Z.
The concept of resilience is really bleeds over into engineering.
When disaster strikes, what are we going to wish we had in place to respond to that? That's part of resilience.
People in towns are asking really critical questions like, what do we do if the electricity turns off? What do we do if the trucks stop rolling? You know, what if the supermarket has only 3 days of food?
Inherently, a local food system is going to be more resilient than one that's dependent on food from far, far away.
If you run the numbers, most metropolitan areas can nowhere near feed themselves within a 100-mile radius on the local foods.
Resilience is a great concept coming out of the field of ecology, but we're putting a new twist on it because we're applying it to human ecology, to human ecosystems.
I think resilience is really important too, because research in my field has shown that when students are asked to produce academic discourse, they go through a struggle and an identity crisis because they're asked to give up their home languages and their vernacular languages to conform to standard written English. And so one of my goals is to help them be resilient and keep that connection to the home language. Like, you don't have to give it up, but you can also try on this other language. So that would be resilience. In the field of writing studies, we talk a lot about the concept of transfer, which is how students transfer what they're learning in their first year writing class to other classes. So how do you get something in one context, writing skills, and then adapt it to another context?
So that adaptation is an essential part of sustainability. We have to basically ask the question, how are we going to live with altered climate zones, altered forestry, altered biological communities that are a direct result of this geological force that we've unleashed upon the planet? That geological force is humanity.
To study sustainability science, if we're going to know what's going to be here in the future, we need to know how species are going to react and how they will adapt to the environment. And we could say the same thing for humans as well.
We're going to have to make some adaptations to our ecosystems, the built environment ecosystems that we live in, our human ecology, and the natural ecosystems.
We will adapt. Let's just hope that we do less reactive adaptation and more proactive adaptation.
Mitigation, so there's a lot of people thinking, like, how can we mitigate for the effects of climate change? So in agriculture, people are, so maybe we're going to have more pests coming in, maybe want to do more permaculture, restore habitats.
Mitigation has been the traditional approach to conservation issues, and more recently people have come to identify that term with mitigating climate change, but the term is much broader than that.
Mitigation, thinking as non-formal educators and as counselors or therapeutic workers, you're trying to help people make connections that have been severed or wounded or injured. Again, whether that's with a deeper sense of self or with certain relationships.
Right now, if you look at the activities that people involved in sustainability are using and the science that they're bringing to it, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience are good category names for the types of activities that we do.
So I think when you think broadly about those three terms, it can be applied across species, including humans.
And Unity College's role in that is we can be a leader in that, because very few places have stepped out and said, yes, that's where we need to go, that's important.
Amy, I'm interested in your experience. You've been a research scientist for a while now, not a very long while, but a while, and you've got quite a bit of experience. How is this project different from other research that you've done, maybe on your own or in smaller teams?
Right, that's a good question. I say, a lot of scientists come from a very sort of reductionist approach to a question, where you take one small part of the broader question, how does this pollinator get on that particular flower, maybe, right? So some kind of ecological question, often without looking at social or economic implications. And so what has been interesting to me, and definitely expanding my skill set and the way I look at solving environmental problems, is looking at the whole problem, not just how does hemlock woolly adelgid change the ecology, but how is it going to affect the way people use it? How is it going to affect it? It's very it's broad. I guess it's transdisciplinary, if we're going to use that term, beyond interdisciplinary, because we're really trying to find a solution from multiple perspectives, really weaving in all of these different perspectives, social and economic and ecological, to come up with the best solution. So I really had not done that before, and again, I've been doing this a while now, but I was always from a fairly reductionist lens in terms of answering questions without this broader perspective. And I'm really enjoying it. It's great. It's more fulfilling, and I think ultimately will lead to science that is actually applicable and useful for people, versus science that is interesting to the scientist and gets sort of put away in a journal that a few other scientists read. So this is more useful, and it feels therefore more kind of fulfilling, I think, at this point in my career.
Sustainability science is the first time that all of the disciplines that relate to humans, as well as the traditional nature disciplines and natural resource disciplines, are brought to the table to focus on an environmental problem or issue through a single agency.
More and more, we see that if you can manage resources from that sort of interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary perspective and take into account the ecology, the social, the economic parameters, then you can come up with management strategies that are more optimal.
Transdisciplinary is where they are all incorporated into a single program.
I think it goes back to optimizing those benefits to society. If we hear from everybody, then we can find resource management strategies that we may not have considered if we were just looking at the ecology piece, or just looking at recreation. But looking at them together, we might come up with something different.
The other thing that's really exciting is we're a small enough campus where we know our colleagues' strengths and our expertise, and we're able to walk down the hall and make a connection. We don't have huge buildings that are departments unto themselves.
The power of that is transformative. It means that we can make much greater progress in terms of addressing these problems.
Let me go ahead and get the caller, and we'll get their question. Caller, say your first name, where you're calling from, and then ask your question.
Yeah, this is Reed from Freedom.
Hi, Reed.
Hi. How you doing, John?
Good.
I can easily see, wildlife capstone students working with some of our social science students, working with some of our humanities students to look at a problem in the local area, to come at it from different perspectives.
You may start at different places. If I was an artist, I would want to start by imagining a possible solution to our human ecological issues, imagining this beautiful solution. But I would fairly quickly, after I imagine this possible creative solution, to apply to it some basic ideas about matter flow and energy flow, matter and energy economy to this, to see if that solution is going to meet the test of environmental sustainability.
Again, these are applied problems because it's sustainability science, but it doesn't mean that there's not this underpinning of sort of this basic information ecologically, socially, economically as well.
The way sustainability sciences can link the majors together is by asking students and faculty to make evidence-based decisions. So using what I would say is one of the best things about the scientific method, which is that it requires us to support claims with evidence and also this sort of open question problem-solving approach.
When we think about sustainability science, we're really just looking at solving environmental problems from multiple disciplines.
Every degree program at Unity College you can think about from a sustainability science perspective.
And I think we can integrate it throughout the curriculum in classes like Unity Experience, starting with the students' transition to college, and in the college communication program, help the students see that they can use tools from various disciplines to solve the problems that they're confronting in their intellectual life and professional future.
I think, in a sense, that they were always linked together. And I think that actually sustainability science puts it up on the forefront now.
We have a lot of science majors, so basically taking a problem often that is science-based, but encouraging them to think about it from different perspectives will be good for all of our majors.
Maybe students will better understand the link. I always knew the link. I was raised by the link. Unity College has always represented the link.
Right, to have a solution, it has to come from all of these different perspectives, and it seems like a good fit for all of our majors.
It's a breath of fresh air to have it, that's the platform of the college, and we're going to try to have students get a better understanding.
In our research.
Some examples of the type of data the students are working on in the summer is they're collecting invertebrate biodiversity, so they're looking at earthworms. Earthworms are not native to Maine, and they've been introduced through fishing, and they're really impacting changes in the soils, and plant diversity, which obviously affect other things as well. So we have 6 undergraduate students working with us this summer for the 3rd summer.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. You've been listening to Midcoast Currents on WERU Community Radio, 89.9 FM Blue Hill, 99.9 FM Bangor, and streaming at weru.org. I'm John Zavadny with Sarah Trunzo. We're your hosts every 3rd Friday at 10 a.m. Midcoast Currents is produced with support from Unity College.
You know, I think about our students, and I think about when I was in school, and I mean, there was a degree of uncertainty when I was in school, but the degree of uncertainty that our students are living with is pretty profound.
Yeah, a lot of our students will go on, they may go get a graduate degree, but they may actually find themselves working in what we call the real world, all right? And in the real world, where you face messes instead of problems, right, you are inherently in this sort of transdisciplinary place.
I don't think they're going to wake up in the morning thinking about sustainability. They'll just naturally do it. It'll be part of their life, and that's how they will use it.
Our students will be at an enormous advantage when they walk out the door, because they will carry with them a vision and a paradigm and a framework that is unlike that coming out of the vast majority of other institutions.
And it's such a point of pride when I'm working with students in the community that you all are out there and engaged and wanting earnestly to make something a better situation.
Now, at Unity College, we have a real advantage moving into sustainability science over many other colleges because we are a liberal arts college. We have always preached the benefits of a broad education, seeing things from broad perspectives.
They're going to do well in their job if they understand sustainable science and sustainable living.
They will be in places of employment, they will be in professional positions, and it will quickly become obvious that they think differently. They've got something different to offer.
I think that they're going to use it and not even know that they're doing it.
And so I think it's the tools that our students are going to need, whether it's in their careers or just their life path. I mean, we're going to have to do this together.